All right, great. Welcome, ladies, and thank you for joining us for the Bike Barn Custom Fit Studios Virtual Women's Fit Clinic. I really miss doing this in person. It's a lot easier, and I really like having the crowd in here, but thank goodness for technology, and we can still get together virtually. And I'm even more thankful for my behind-the-scenes crew, Lisa and Manette, who've really they know a lot more about technology than I do, and they made this all possible. Thank you for your help, girls. So, we're glad to provide you with some information tonight. We're going to talk about things that will help you enjoy riding your bike. I'm Cynthia Stewart. I'm a certified fit specialist. I have been with Bike Barn for about 14 years. I've been doing fits for probably 12 of those 14 years, doing about 500 fits a year. I fit everything from road bikes, mountain bikes, hybrids, tri-bikes, a bike you bought here or a bike you bought used or from another store. We don't care. I will fit anything. I'm also a cyclist, so I can relate to you as a cyclist. I've been riding for over 20 years. I got started with my son, and I've ridden everything from mountain bikes, road bikes, cyclocross, a little bit of everything. I'm a little more recreational now. I used to be a lot more serious. So tonight we are going to be focusing on women's fit issues. I have a lot of information to share with you, and we're going to give you some possible solutions to things too. I'll be taking questions at the end, so if there's something that I didn't cover that you were wanting to hear about, or something that I raised a bigger question instead of answering your questions, just know that we'll take some questions during the end. So sit back, grab yourself a glass of wine, and enjoy the presentation. So we're going to talk a little bit about women's specific products. So there's a lot of bikes out there that were designed just for women. There's a lot of products out there, and they can help us to ride with less pain, to be more comfortable, less fatigue, and more power. Really, women's products came around in the early 2000s. They realized that there was a lot more women starting to ride, and they wanted to make bikes more, I think they just wanted to make them more appealing to women. I can't say they were necessarily more comfortable at first, but they did have sort of a pink it and shrink it mentality. Manufacturers then soon realized that they needed to make products that actually fit a woman's body. We are different than men. Back when they first started doing this, they didn't really have a lot of research or data to prove that women, besides the obvious, that our bodies are different than men's. There was a long-standing myth that we had a shorter torso and longer legs. So consequently, manufacturers made bikes with a shorter top tube and a taller head tube. So they would then dub them women's specific design. Moving forward, we have found that through research that specialized women's product manager and Retool have done with the technology that Retool has, they actually can measure body segments, and they realize that women and men are proportionally not that different as what they used to think. And what does that mean? It means that possibly a women's specific design is not necessarily different than what a man's bike would be. But if they call something a women's specific design, it's supposed to be more comfortable, right? We'll see. Manufacturers are just going back to unisex designs. That doesn't mean they don't care about women's products or women riders. We want to make we still want to make sure, I want to make sure that whatever frame that you're on, that we make it fit you. There's things that can be done to tailor that to you and your specific and unique body. So based off of that information, we'll get into some of the issues that women have. So we're going to focus on the touch points of the bike. So the places that our body touches the bike, like where we sit on the saddle, where our hands are on the handlebars, and where our feet are, tend to be some of the most painful or sore or create the most issues. So the biggest complaint I get from ladies is sometimes saddles. Some women think that you're supposed to just toughen it up. Some women don't know that You're not supposed to hurt on a bike. So tonight we're going to talk about things that we can do as a fitter to make you more comfortable on your bike. And if you're more comfortable, again, you're going to enjoy the ride more. And if you enjoy it more, you're going to do it more. And that's what it's all about. So the first thing we're going to talk about, and again, this is one of the issues that women complain the loudliest about. Is that a word, loudly? I don't think that's a word. Loudest is our saddle issues. And from experience, I have been on that seat that has caused a painful ride, and you can't sit down, you can't sit still, you can't pedal, you can't do anything but think about how much that saddle hurts. So the common issues with the saddle can be chafing, it can be numbness, and that can be either in the front or the back, sore or saddle sores. When you're riding the wrong saddle in the wrong position, it can be painful, uncomfortable, and it can rob you of power. So part of the reasons why women suffer so much on seats, if you're trying to ride a seat that was designed for a man, it's not going to be comfortable. Now, sometimes women think that we've got bigger hips than men. Yes and no. Basically, the next slide is up with the male versus the female pelvis. Women's bodies are different, and it greatly affects how we choose a saddle. And if you look at the picture on the slide, a woman's pelvis is wider than a male pelvis, not only at the top, but most importantly where the stones are. Our hips were designed for childbearing. Now that doesn't mean that we both can't enjoy cycling or sitting on a saddle or find a saddle, but the way things are designed, we can end up with a seat that's too narrow, and we'll end up sitting on soft tissue as opposed to our bone structure. So the ischial tuberosities, excuse me, ischial tuberosities, this is the male pelvis, by the way. A little narrower here, taller. Ischial tuberosities are closer together on a male. And again, for a woman, we're wider apart. On average, about 2 centimeters wider. Not only is the female ischial tuberosities or sit bones wider, the pubic arch is lower, which leads us to, or lends us ourselves to being on the saddle where we can compress that soft tissue much easier than what a male would. So, do you think that because our anatomy is different that this should affect our saddle selection? It should. So some solutions for trying to find a seat that is comfortable. Saddles range in width from 100 millimeters to over 200 millimeters and everything in between. So imagine if your saddle's too narrow to support you. When we sit on a saddle, we want our sit bones to be on this widest part of the seat. So if our sit bones are being supported properly, that's going to relieve pressure in the female area, the soft tissue. There's areas I will tell you to toughen up. Sit bones, if you're a new rider, sit bone area will have to toughen up. Our female area, I will never tell you to toughen up there. That area is not designed to bear weight. So don't try to be a tough girl and persevere and go through it. Sometimes it's okay to complain because there are solutions that can make things better. So if our sit bones are not on the seat and we're wider, we can end up putting a lot of pressure in the wrong places. Sometimes too, if the seat is in the wrong place, say fore and aft, we'll end up sitting in the wrong place on the saddle. So it could be the right saddle, but if you have it in the wrong place, it can make it very, very uncomfortable. So not only do saddles come in different widths, because we are all different widths, and I can't look at you and decide, okay, she's a very narrow, petite woman, she must need a very narrow saddle, or she might have a little bit bigger hips, so she needs a bigger saddle. I can't look at anyone and make a determination on what size they would need. Fortunately, we have a device that we can use to measure the width of your sit bones, and it's the sit bone measuring device. It's a gel pad that we'll have you sit on, and we're not measuring how big your behind is. We're measuring how, and I know because women get all worried when I have them sit on it, but we're just going to measure the width of your sit bones. So you'll sit on it, and as you sit, it will leave two little indentations that then I can measure and get a starting point for saddle selection. So again, women, we need a little bit wider saddle than men. So if you're trying to ride a bike that you bought that was not equipped with a women's specific saddle, you're going to be struggling with the seat. And it could be that it was equipped with the women's specific saddle, but if it wasn't the right width for you, it can be very uncomfortable. There's also different shapes. The saddle I'm holding right now is a rather newish model that was designed for women by doctors, engineers, and athletes. You notice that it has a relief here where there used to be a cutout, and there is a reason for that. If you look at the shell, there is a cutout, but it's covered. What was found that some women with a cutout when you're riding, that our body parts would mold or fit right into that cutout. And then when you stand up and relieve a little bit of pressure, even if you're not bearing weight, blood can rush to that area and swell. You sit back down, and then things are not going to fit into that cutout. So this is designed with like a trampoline-like covering so that it provides support in our body parts and our anatomy is not going to swell and fall down into something. And it's soft and flexible, which is very nice. The front part of the nose is a lot softer than what a typical saddle is, and it's got a density that mimics the density of our soft tissue, which is why this new saddle is called the Mimic. It works for some women, but just to tell you, not every saddle works for every woman. So I know when we have issues, we start asking our girlfriends, what do you ride? What works for you? Because we don't know what to do. And that's common. I have somebody come in that is riding a saddle. Well, Susie's riding this and it works for her, but I can't get it to work for me. Again, if it's not the right width or the shape or installed properly, it may not work for you. It's not uncommon to have the right saddle and, the right saddle in the wrong position. So that's where help from a professional can help you. A saddle should be just a little bit wider than your sit bones, probably 1 centimeter to 2 centimeters, and that's depending on what kind of riding you're doing. If you are a triathlete, you're going to be sitting on the seat. I only have a male pelvic model, so I'm going to use this as an example, but if you think about us sitting in a chair, we sit straight up and down. As we roll forward into a cycling position, road position, we're sitting on a little bit narrower part of our sit bones. Triathletes, you'll roll even more forward. We still want it to be bony structure or skeletal structure that's supporting us, not that soft tissue. Finding a saddle, though, as a aero position, you can have a saddle that's a little bit narrower. And if you're riding on a hybrid, that's fine too. Hybrid saddles tend to be wider. And I know women that are just getting started think that just because a saddle is wider, it's going to be more comfortable. And that's not necessarily the case. Or if it's softer and a gel cover, it's going to be more comfortable. Short rides, a soft, wide saddle might be comfortable, but if for a longer ride, that softer saddle or gel, you end up sinking down into it, and that gel pushes up into places that are not very comfortable. So a nice firm gel is also going to be a lot more comfortable. Oftentimes when we have saddle issues, I'll see people adjust the angle of their seat because they think, okay, I'm going to tip that nose down, it gets it out of the way. That doesn't always work. What then happens is you're trying to sit back here, but you're sliding forward. And that creates another issue. If you're sliding forward, we end up pushing ourselves back, and then you're going to have upper body issues, which we'll get to in a minute. With the saddle now, you'll notice this saddle, I don't know if you can see it on the video, is not a perfectly level saddle. It flips up in the back. It works for some people. But how do I put it on? Do I want to level it this way? No, because then the nose is going to be up into places. What we want to level is this front part. So you'll have a little flip up, but this front part is going to be level. If you're using a saddle that's totally level, if you look at it off the bike, it's totally level, then you want it to be level on your bike as a starting point. It's not uncommon for me to go a degree nose up or a degree nose down, but usually no more than 1 degree either way. Otherwise, too much up, it's going to put pressure up into the soft tissue again. Too much down, you're going to slide forward. Saddle height. Where your saddle is positioned up and down makes a difference on the comfort. If you're not getting proper leg extension, we tend to sit harder on the saddle. So if you're too low, you tend to sit a little bit harder on the saddle, which more pressure on the saddle. Weight distribution on a bike should be about 60% on the seat and 40% on our hands. Now, when we start pedaling and the harder efforts that we do, it will take a little pressure off the saddle. On the flip side of that, if your seat's too high, that can cause issues too, because you can only get to the pedal one way, and if that extension to the bottom of the pedal stroke is too much, you're going to start finding your hips rocking side to side, trying to get to the bottom of the pedal stroke. You may have heard the myth or the general rule that if the hips are rocking, your seat's too high. Sometimes that's the case, but I have to be careful too, just looking at somebody riding, because there is going to be some hip movement naturally. As women, we've got a little bit more adipose tissue on the hips, and so there's going to be movement even if our bony structure's solid. Now, if our sit bones are moving, or you're really having to move a lot to get to the bottom of the pedal stroke, that can cause a lot of chafing. It can cause soreness and issues and discomfort with your saddle. I always say that suitable shorts and bibs, now not a lot of women like to wear bibs, some women do, and there's women-specific bib shorts that are great. I didn't bring an example to show you, but and a proper chamois can work well and in conjunction with the saddle to provide support and cushion and protection for you. I see oftentimes somebody might be wearing a pair of shorts, cycling shorts that are too big for them. And if you're wearing a pair of shorts that's too big for you, not only is the fabric that's designed to compress not doing the compression that it's intended to do, the chamois might be too big and move around underneath your undercarriage. And anything that's moving around can cause chafing, discomfort, just a lot of issues. So wearing the proper size for you is important. Sometimes I hear that cycling shorts are too long. I don't want the tan lines. Well, yes, as a rule, most cycling shorts are a little bit longer, and it's designed to compress our muscles and our quads to help us have a better performance, but they do make shorter shorts as well. The other thing, if you're a new cyclist, and if you're experienced and tuned in, I don't mean to talk down to anyone, but if there's new cyclists out there that have joined us, the one thing that I can tell you that I can't stress enough that's important when you're wearing cycling shorts is nothing comes between you and your cycling shorts. So that chamois should be right next to your skin. We don't want layers of undergarments that might be creating, have a little lace or a little zigzag stitch, and that can cause a lot of chafing and issues. So cycling shorts are designed to be right next to your skin. The other thing that is helpful with keeping your saddle comfortable or keeping that area comfortable is chamois cream. And I always say this reluctantly because to me, chamois cream is not a fix for a bad fit. It's something that should enhance a good fit and give you a moisture barrier and help with chafing. You think of cycling as a repetitive sport. We're spinning our pedals. If you have a high cadence of 90 RPMs, times how many minutes, times how many hours you're on the bike, you can have tens of thousands of pedal strokes. in the same position. So chafing can be an issue. I know in Houston, with the heat and humidity that we have, the chamois cream provides a moisture barrier that helps me with comfort. And I will sometimes get the question, where do I put the chamois cream? A little bit of history. Chamois, the pad in our shorts used to be made out of a real chamois, which, if you don't know what that is, it's very thin cowhide, leather. And when you wash it or when you wear it and it dries out, it would be very stiff. I have a chamois at home I use to dry my car with, and when it dries, it's hard. Chamois cream was designed to put onto the chamois to soften that up, so when the cyclists would put their shorts on, it would be soft and not have this rough fabric or material next to them. Now they're all synthetic. I don't know if you can still get retro ones. I don't know who would want to, but the chamois cream is designed to put on our bodies. I know with me, I only have an issue right at the back of my glute, and that's the only place I put it. My husband, when he rides, he can probably go through a tube a week of chamois cream because he thinks more is always better, and he puts it all over. So you'll have to find what works for you. Maybe that was too much information, sorry. Hopefully y'all don't know my husband. He'll kill me if he knows I said that. Okay. I spend a lot of time on saddles because that's usually the thing I hear the biggest complaint about. Let's move on to hands, shoulders, and back. Biggest concerns, complaints I get from upper body is a lot of pressure, numbness in our fingers, tingling, pressure in my neck, burning between the shoulder blades, and or lower back, which is connected. There are solutions for those issues. So it's very, very complicated when we start moving things around on our bike. So when I talked about the saddle, if you start moving your seat, it's going to affect the front end of your bike too. You make the seat more comfortable, but then you might have thrown something off in the front. So everything is connected. But with the upper body, having the proper reach to your handlebars, whether you're on a hybrid, a tri-bike, or a road bike, or just a beach cruiser, having the proper reach to your handlebars is important. And the reach is from the seat to where your hands are on your handlebar, whether it's a flat bar or a road bar. I've seen people come in and somebody's done a fit on them and they've slammed their seat forward, especially on petite women. They'll maybe slam the seat forward, trying to get them closer to the handlebars. That gets you closer to your handlebars, but now you've thrown your knees out of alignment and you can end up damaging, having the patella rub over the end of the femur because your knee's at the improper angle. So be careful if somebody's trying to get you closer to the handlebars, then just slam your seat forward. It may be the right position, or it could throw you too far forward. There's other things that could be done with the reach. Bikes have a stem that holds the handlebars onto the bike. And I can only have so many props. There's a stem and it comes in a variety of lengths, anywhere from mountain bikes now have these really short, stubby little 50-millimeter long stems to a stem that's 120, 130 millimeters long. We want something that is going to give us a nice soft elbow. We don't want to be, if we're having to reach too far for the handlebars, that can cause saddle issues as well. It can cause you to rotate your pelvis forward. It can cause your arms to be locked out, shoulders rolled forward. That's not comfortable. So a soft elbow, soft shoulders, relaxed shoulders. If you're on a flat bar, same thing. We don't want our shoulders rolling forward. We want a nice relaxed shoulder and a soft elbow. Soft elbow, it's hard to describe what kind of angle we're looking at. Basically, we don't want arms locked out, whether we're on a flat bar or on a road bar. So bent elbow. If you lock those joints out, any of those road vibrations can do damage to the joint, and then that can radiate up into our neck and shoulders. Proper saddle to bar vertical drop. What does that mean? So when we're on a bike, we have a seat at this height, and our handlebars, are they higher than our seat, lower than our seat, or at the same height as our seat? There's no right or wrong answer. It depends on you and your body. Flexibility, the length of your arms. I've got long arms. It's easier for me to get to my handlebars on my road bike. I'm not very flexible, but I've got longer arms. But those types of things are going to affect the reach to your handlebars and where your handlebars will be, and what kind of bike you're on, and what kind of riding you do. We have people that are more aggressive. They like to ride faster, more aggressive. They want to be at a more aggressive torso angle. If you've got a strong core and have the flexibility, that's fine. If you've got back issues, you don't want to strain your back, then we probably don't want to be too stretched out. I hear women say, and I hear more women complain about it than men. I don't want to be all hunched over. I don't want to ride a road bike. Well, guess what? I don't want you to be hunched over either. I don't care if you're on a road bike or a mountain bike or whatever. Hunched over doesn't sound like a pleasant position. It's not a good, proper cycling position. Torso angle, different degrees of leaning forward, depending on what kind of bike you're on. A little more upright on a hybrid, a little bit more 35 to 45 degree angle if you're on a road bike. And then different handlebars. I don't know, because you're not here, I can't ask you how many roadies we have, how many triathletes, or if you're on a hybrid, but for the road population that's out there listening, one thing I see women suffer through is a handlebar that's too wide for them. And how I know it's too wide is it's wider than your shoulders. When we measure to see how wide a handlebar should be, we're not measuring outside to outside or our muscles. There's an AC joint. You can feel that little protrudence on the top of your shoulders. That's how wide your handlebars should be on a road bike. And when you're on, can you see this if I do this? So if you're on your road bike, your handlebars should be the same width as your shoulders, and then your wrist, elbow, and shoulders should be in alignment. If your handlebars are too wide, you're going to make this tripod, and it's going to end up putting some strain on your shoulders. Or what I will see women do is pull their wrists in like this. And when you do that, you end up putting pressure in the wrong place on your hands. All the nerve runs through our hands, it splits, a lot more cushion on the heel of our hand. If you put the pressure here, if I press right now, it'll start tingling. So if you ride with the pressure across that part of your hand, it's going to start tingling, which can lead to numbness. There's also things that we can do with the rotation of the bar. I see people that will rotate them up because they want to sit up higher. Well, then that's going to put your wrist in a very unnatural position. Again, neutral wrist. I don't want the wrist to be cocked up or cocked down. It should be neutral. Same thing on a flat bar. When you're holding the flat bar, can you see my hand there? When you're holding the flat bar, if your wrist is having to bend up or down, that's going to put strain on that joint, which we don't want to do that. So this rotation, typically I am searching for a flat transition from the shifter or brake hood to the handlebar, which helps to keep your hand in a neutral position. And I know and I don't mean to generalize, there's a lot of ladies that use all the parts of their handlebar. Some ladies don't like to ride in the drops, but I like it to be a position that you can get to comfortably, because we don't have hills around here, but we do have headwinds, and pretty serious headwinds. So if you can get in and use the drops comfortably, that's going to help you to decrease your frontal surface area and make your ride a little easier. So lots of things to talk about with handlebars. And then, like I said, I touched on proper hand position. Sometimes you can't get it in the right position if the handlebar is too wide for you. Handlebars come anywhere between 36 centimeters wide all the way up to 46, and I know 10 centimeters doesn't sound like a lot, but it is a lot, especially if that handlebar is wider than your shoulders. Gloves can help. I have kind of the same feeling with gloves as I do with chamois cream. Gloves are, I wear gloves when I ride because several reasons. Not because my fit is improper, not because I need them to make my hands comfortable. I'm very, very lucky. If I could ride without gloves, I would. And I've gotten to where I like a glove that's not as padded because I've got the fit dialed in. But there are gloves that are made that will put gel pads to help the ulnar nerve, to keep the pressure off of the ulnar nerve. The other thing is they have a little terry cloth area here. I sweat a lot. I like to wipe the sweat off my brow. The other thing is if we happen to fall, we never want you to fall, but if we happen to fall, our first instinct is to put our hands down. So gloves are going to help save the skin on your hands. And they can help with the gel, can help with vibrations too. Okay, on to our feet. So any of you out there have some foot problems? Hopefully we'll touch on those problems and some solutions. Common issues I hear about are burning, numbness, soreness, cramping, swelling. The most important thing I can say about foot issues, proper cycling shoes for the type of riding you're doing. If you're doing longer rides, a cycling shoe can be a big help because it's stiff. Our feet are doing different things. When we're walking, our arches are storing and releasing energy and designed to move. If you're using a cycling shoe, it's stiff. It's there to support our foot and to help our foot work as a lever. So we don't want the arch to be working inside our shoe. So a good cycling shoe is going to be stiffer. We can clip in, and I don't want you ladies to be afraid of clipping in. There are ways to get it to where it's easier in, easier out, and comfortable, and you don't have to be afraid. We don't want you to fall, and I like to get shoes set up to where you're not going to fall. So the right pedal. Getting started, I know I rode flat pedals too. I can't, when you're on a flat pedal, I can't ensure that your foot is going to stay in the right place, which means you could be putting the pressure on the wrong place on your foot, which could also lead to knee issues and other issues, because if your foot's on a different place on the saddle, it changes the leg extension, it changes the ankling, those types of things. If, I didn't talk about fit on cycling shoes. Cycling shoes, not like an athletic shoe, you don't have to get them a size and a half to 2 sizes bigger. The most important thing with the cycling shoe is when your foot is in it, you don't want your toes feeling the end of the shoe. If your toes feel the end of the shoe, and you think about, most of us point a little bit as we're pedaling, our toes going to be down a little bit. That little bit of touching can end up after many, many miles of causing a lot of pressure on the ends of your toes, which can lead to numbness. So you want wiggle room on the tips of your toes, and you don't want the tops of your toes hitting. Cleat position, if you are clipped in, we don't want, there used to be an old, not wives' tale, but a general rule of setting your cleat up so the ball of your foot was right in line with the axle of the pedal. We have found that when you set your shoe up that way, that now you're putting the pressure right on that metatarsal pad. Those of you with hot foot, this can add to hot foot. If you're wondering what is hot foot, you don't have it. If you had hot foot, you would know, believe me, and it burns and it hurts, it feels like your foot's on fire. Now there can be some other conditions if you're a runner, or if you, runners get Morton's neuromas, which is a little cluster of nerves on the bottom side of their foot that cycling can irritate. Cycling doesn't usually cause that, but it can aggravate it if you've got it. But cleat position, arch support that can help keep those bones from pushing against each other. If our shoes aren't wide enough, I know I've had trouble with bunions in the past. Shoes sometimes are not made to fit the widest part of our foot. There's things that can be done there too. There are shoes that come in wide. There are shoes that run wider than others. I also have a bunion stretcher, and I have used that on men and women, and not just right there where the first metatarsal is, but on both sides. The specific insoles for arch support, again, that can stabilize our foot, and those insoles also are cycling specific because our foot's in a little different place. It can also help with that hot foot too, so I would always look into that. I've covered all those touch points. I wanted to share with you a picture of a fit I did some time ago. If you notice, on the left is the before picture, and she's a bit curved. Her spine is curved. There's a lot of pressure on her hands. Her shoulders are rolled forward. And most of this was resolved by getting her on the right saddle in the right position. She was doing what I call self-preservation. People will tuck their pelvis under to get that soft tissue off the saddle. Well, when you tuck your pelvis under, it's very difficult for your spine to stay straight. So if you can get your pelvis in the right position, the spine will elongate. So getting the saddle in the right position, she was able to relax shoulders, relax her elbows, and that helped to put her in a much better, more efficient position. Okay, so Bike Barn Custom Fit Studio. When I do a fit, we take care of all of these issues. So when you come in to see me, we start with an interview. I want to hear about your cycling history, the goals you're working towards. Just as importantly, I want to hear about what issues you're having on the bike and what injuries you've had, not just cycling injuries, but any injuries, because that can cause issues with your current setup. After the interview, I'll go through a physical assessment, and with the physical assessment, we're looking at your body structure, flexibility, range of motion. We measure the width of your sit bones. I look at foot structure, because all of those things off the bike give me a better picture of who you are, so that I can help to tailor the bike to fit you, which is the whole goal. When the bike is tailored to fit you, you're going to be more efficient, you're going to be more powerful, you're certainly going to be more comfortable, and you're going to look forward to your next ride. Then we'll go through the fit, make the adjustments. You always get a free follow-up. I send a report out also that gives you all the data that I covered, that I found, the measurements of your bike before and after. And just, I like to see how you've settled into things. So I like to see my clients back in 30 to 40 days so we can make some final adjustments. You can check out our website on bikebarn.com. There's a tab for the Custom Fit Studio, and there's more information and videos there, and the pricing, those types of things. And I guess now we can open it up for questions. I have to rely on my trusty helpers to take your questions if anyone's got questions. After all that talking, I'll have another sip of water. Fits are by appointment. While Minette's looking, feel free to go ahead and ask your questions. Minette will share those with me. But fits are by appointment. Our contact information is studio@bikebarn.com. You can give us a call at 713-432-7720. I also, when I do these clinics live, I always hand out a fit coupon because I know it's an investment, but you've invested in your bike, and so investing in the fit so you can enjoy it should be a great idea. But if you are interested in booking a fit, you can shoot me an email. Let me know that you were here on our virtual clinic, and I'll make sure that we get you a coupon for $50 off a fit.
Our first question is from Bernadette, and she said, what was the proper cleat placement?
Proper cleat placement. That's a good question, Bernadette. There's a general rule of thumb for a neutral position, but what's neutral for me and what's neutral for you could be two different things. Typically, we want the foot to be a little bit more forward so that the axle of the pedal is behind the ball of your foot. If you're looking at the bottom of your shoes, I don't have a cleat here. If you're using a road shoe, there's 3 little holes here. You want the cleat to be back. Now, other things that can cause issues is the lateral adjustment of cleats, and then there's rotation too. So those are things that's hard to do yourself, but that's things that we always address during the fit. So that's kind of a roundabout answer to that. It's hard to say. There's not a true proper for, it's not cookie cutter, basically. It will adjust it to you.
Our next question is from Laura. She said she has an ISM saddle and a zip tie was used underneath.
ISM, Adamo, does not recommend that you do the zip tie. For those, I don't have an example of that saddle here, but ISM saddles have two prongs on the nose, and they are designed for triathletes. They are designed for road too, but they're designed that for people who ride in an aggressive position, so your pelvis is tilted forward. Those two prongs are designed for your pelvis, the pelvic bones, pubic rami to be on. However, the nose of that saddle tends to be a little wide for people, some people, not everybody. They work great for some people. And so I've seen a lot of people come in where they take under the rails and zip tie it, trying to make the nose of the saddle narrower. ISM, I mean, they're trying to pull the rail, so that could affect positioning of the seat. Oftentimes you can find a saddle that the nose is going to fit your anatomy a little bit better than having to try to alter. And I guess my question to you would be, is that zip tie, is the saddle working for you? But they don't recommend, the company does not recommend that you use zip ties on the saddle.
Sandy asked, she said her left foot goes numb after about 10 miles. Any suggestions?
Sandy, is it your toes or is it underneath or is it the whole foot? Several things could be going on. Tell me if she responds to that. If you're using a cycling shoe, make sure you're not strapping it down too tightly. And I'm sure if it's going numb, you probably already tried to release it a little bit. It could be if the cleat's not in the right position laterally or the rotation, you could be fighting your shoe if your foot, it's your toe and below your toes. So arch support can help, cycling specific arch support. Also, our feet, like I said, our feet are designed for walking and running. Our foot, most people's feet are going to have a bit of an arch, and when we stand on it, our arch collapses. So if you don't have proper cycling arch support in your shoe, your foot could be moving a lot, and that constant movement can put a lot of pressure underneath the metatarsal pad and the toes. If your shoe's too narrow, if it's narrow, it can squeeze those bones together, and there's nerves that run in between our bones, and if they get irritated, your toes can go numb. So several things. Make sure that there's plenty of toe wiggle room. Make sure you're not compressing the metatarsals together. Cleat placement, arch support. So that's a very difficult thing to fix, but there's lots of things. And then cleat, make sure your cleat's back. Good question.
Janine, she said, how extended should your leg be when you're at the bottom of your posture?
That's a good question, Janine. It's different for everybody, about a 20 to 40 degree bend. So there is a wide range. It depends on your flexibility. It depends on the type of bike you're riding. So if you're on a hybrid and riding around the neighborhood with your kids, you might want to be able to sit on the seat and put both feet on the ground. If you're riding a road bike or a tri-bike and doing more longer rides, more serious rides, you want to have that 20, I usually say 30 degrees is a good rule of thumb, but again, it depends on your flexibility, your body. There is a range, but we want to have about that 30-degree bend at the bottom of the pedal stroke.
And then Amber asked, as a new rider, where's a good place to start riding in Houston?
I guess it depends on what part of town you live in. There are several, City of Houston has done a great job with hike and bike trails, so you don't have to fight traffic. I know as a new rider, that's always, well, even an experienced rider, our biggest concern is traffic and cars and sharing the road. Memorial Park has the picnic loop. It's not a big long loop, but it's almost a mile loop that you can go out and do circuit training. I used to go there and do intervals because it was safe and I didn't get bored. I say safe from cars, and I always felt safe with other cyclists there too. I'd go by myself or I'd have a group of friends. But I'd check out the hike and bike trails. I think even if you use your phone with Google Maps, you can put the biking app, or not app, but the icon that instead of driving that you're biking, and it'll give you a list of the trails too. West Side, there's George Bush Park, Terry Hershey Park. There's lots of opportunities to go ride your bike.
Okay. Laura had one more question. She said her setup is a very aggressive aero position on a tri-bike where I'm comfortable in aero, but if I have to ride it straight up, my hands go numb. Is it possible to get it so it's comfortable in this other position, or is it a trade-off on tri-bikes?
So with tri-bikes, ideally when you're on the base bar, which is not your aero position, but you're on the base bar, ideally that position would mimic a road position. With today's bikes, that's not always easy to get that position. It's great that you're comfortable in aero, and for those triathletes that are competing, the whole goal is to stay aero as much as possible, unless you're doing a 90-degree turn or a 180 turn or coming in and out of transition. It depends on if you want to spend money on it or not too, and also how integrated the front end of your bike is. So without seeing your individual bike, that's a hard question to answer. But yes, sometimes it is possible. It just depends. If you some bikes you end up raising the base bar, you're going to raise up your aero position, then you're going to be too. It may or may not work. Good question. That's it. Well, ladies, I think that's all the time we have tonight. Thank you so much. Please, if there's some questions that you have, don't hesitate to email me, Cynthia@bikebarn.com or studio@bikebarn.com. We're glad you were able to join us. Again, I'm sad we weren't in person, but at least we could get together virtually. Have a great evening. Thank you.